Ah. Oh, well, hello there. I didn't see you there. How did you get into my house? Who are you? Oh, you want me to go first? Okay. Well, this is awkward. Hello, welcome to my channel.
Hello there.
My username is Reynard. People call me Ray for short. You can call me Ray if you want. I mean, you just broke into my house, but I figured let's get away with formalities. Just make yourself at home. This is gonna be an introductory video of sorts for this Booktube channel that I decided to do on YouTube. I have a series of questions with the Newbie Booktube tag associated with it, but I wanted to first tell you who I am, what I do, and all that just like that. So for starters, I am a married gay man. I live in the Freedom State of Florida. I'm not going to tell you where. You've already geoguessed your way into my home. I don't think I need to elaborate further. And I'm also a bit of a creative. I'm a reader. I'm a writer. I dabble in art. However, my full-time job, I'm a pharmacy tech. I'm in my mid-30s, so I'm kind of old by this platform's standards. I did mention I was a writer. I wrote a book. I wrote a children's book. That was great. Went through the querying process, and that went, but I was unsuccessful in getting traditionally published, which is a dream of mine. But we tarry on. As with the flow of time, it ever goes on. And I'm writing another book right now. It's more of an adult, maybe young adult sort of sci-fi fantasy. But we're not going to get into that today. We're here to talk about the birth of my channel. Let's get into some questions, shall we? Question number one is, why did you start this channel? And I decided recently that I was going to get into more reading. I've been reading on and off throughout the years. It's been more of a peaks and valleys kind of trend. After I got my Kindle, I've been regularly doing it and been ramping up and increasing my reading pile to the point where I'm finishing multiple books in a month. So I figured in a way of sort of making this more interesting for myself. So as a way of documenting my reading, maybe even sort of capturing in amber my thoughts and my feelings on some of these books, perhaps to sort of maybe challenge myself. I'm kind of exploring this with you guys. I'm sure people will let me know if I'm doing something right or wrong. Round up the question. Essentially, as a creative individual, I just want to create something, and I decided to create this channel and to share my thoughts and feelings and my arguments and such with you lot. So that's question number one. Question number two, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? For starters, I would like to think that I have a bit of a sense of humor that I'd like to bring to Booktube. And not that a lot of Booktubers are kind of sticks in the mud kind of deal. I think there's a lot of good funny ones. I think the one I really like in particular, her name is Uncarly on here. She's a Canadian YouTuber, and I think she's funny. I think she's got a great wit and sense of humor, and I love her sarcasm. I also like other commentary channels like Drew Gooden, Chad, where they're just kind of witty, also kind of low-key commentary. I'm trying to fill in some gaps in my reading, in what books I've read. I've got a lot of classics I need to read, some of them beefier than others. And I had this idea, it's actually with Ulysses, this freaking mammoth of a book that's been staring at me on my desk here. I thought about sort of a sort of documenting of me going through this book, studying it, reading it, and capturing my thoughts about it. I was going to do it perhaps with Moby Dick, War and Peace, and then I'd also like to perhaps do some summarizing what I read at the end of the month, saying to capture my state of mind that month and document my reading trends of sorts. Number three, what are you most excited about for this channel? Reading more books. Let me scoot you over here. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You never look at me. I've mentioned about books I'd like to read, but I'm sure there's going to be books that I've never heard of that are going to fall into my lap and I'm going to be like, wow, yes, that's definitely the book I got to read. Understanding perspectives, like not necessarily of other writers, but also of readers. See what they gleamed from this work and connect to them in a way and understand the prose a little differently. Number 4, why do you love reading? Por qué? I'm a creative individual by nature and also very curious. Reading helps me to sort of sate my curiosity. Reading is also very calming to a degree. It depends on how invested you are in a book. I've definitely stayed up to finish a book and have been like, oh, I gotta see how this ends. People get really emotionally invested in books. I also love reading because as a writer, I want to understand the craft better. And so I feel as if reading books helps me see how the others do it, see how the masters and those who are published are able to write so well. I take mental inventory of like the words that are used, how sentences and paragraphs are structured. Not to say that you should. Reading is an individual thing. There's no wrong way of reading a book, in my opinion. To a degree, maybe. I don't know, maybe I should cut this out. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? I was in kindergarten, actually. It was after school. My mom took us to the grocery store, and it was my cousin's birthday, and Goosebumps was the thing at the time. It was chic, let's just say. R.L. Stine, you're the OG. So we get to the magazines, and next to the magazines, there's a book section with some paperbacks. The Goosebumps book of the month was The Headless Ghost. And I was instantly like, can I have the book? Can I get a book? My mom was like, you can't read, dumb child, stupid spawn of my... No, that's really harsh. She didn't say that. She mildly said, you can't read that. So I looked at her and I said, bet. And I proceeded to read the first chapter of this book. Needless to say, I walked out with that copy for myself, and we got one for my cousin, of course. I had read picture books, and those are like, you primarily read those for the pictures and stuff when you're a kid. But Goosebumps was the book that I was like, there's no pictures in here, there's just words. But I was able to read them and formulate my thoughts and stuff like that. So from Goosebumps, I graduated, the usual progression that some of us who shopped around the Scholastic Book Fair did, jumped from Goosebumps to Animorphs to Harry Potter. And then I went to Redwall. And then from there, it was just like, it was Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey. Question number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? What editing software do you guys use? How often do you read? When's the best time to read? Are you the type of reader that reads something that you're in the mood for, or do you have like an agenda? You like, I have to read this book at this month at this time kind of deal. I find I myself am a mood reader. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to read that book, but then I kind of feel like, oh, wait, I'm in the mood for that. Those are the things I would ask. I'm not really sure what I would ask a booktuber. I would say, how's your day going? Hi. Are you well? Can I get you anything? Question number 7. What challenges do you think starting a YouTube channel would be the hardest to overcome? Patience and perseverance are the things to really take to heart. These sorts of things, successful or not, they're a labor of love. Who am I doing this for? Mainly, I'm doing it for myself. If other people enjoy what they see and they want to stick around, hey, even better. If I get monetized for it, hey, even better. I'm not going to sit here and say success is what hinges on the make or break of this thing. Ultimately, I think what's going to be a little difficult for me is maybe having consistency. I think I need to be consistent, but I also work full time. I have other things I do. I read. Sometimes a video game will come along and I'd like to play that. And then, I have to see family and stuff. So, life happens as it does. You know, I don't want this channel to be like, oh, I got to do one of these things. So I think that by me lumping my reading into this new venture, that perhaps it won't feel like a chore. It'll also probably make it more fun in a way. And that's the object here, is to have fun with it, really, and to not lose sight of what this is all about. Question number 8 asks, when did you start reading? You know, I kind of already answered that it was in kindergarten that I started reading. It's always been kind of peaks and valleys. I've always read, but not as voracious as some people. My husband got me a Kindle, an Oasis, in 2019. Perfect year for that to have happened. You know, I made it a regular habit of reading a book, finish a book in a month, and then it kind of ramped up a little bit. I would answer that question in kindergarten was when I first started reading, but voraciously when I got a Kindle. Number 9, where do you read? Anywhere I can. My couch right here is where I do a lot of my reading. In bed, you know, where the magic happens. I'll read there before I go to sleep. At work, I'm punctual to a fault, so I get to work early. So sometimes after I write like in my diary, I'll take out my book and I'll read a couple passages from there. I'll eat at my desk while I'm working, so that way when my lunch break comes around, I have 30 minutes to read my book then. Usually, if I know I have to be somewhere for a while, if I got to get my car serviced, if I have a doctor's appointment. Recently, we went to LA, and I was in the middle row. It was uncomfortable, but I was able to read on there too. I'm saying I can read kind of wherever and whenever I can. So I'm not immune to distractions, but otherwise, yeah, I can read. I read wherever and whenever I can. And finally, number 10 is, what kind of books do you like to read? And this is probably the widest net I cast. I will read anything and everything. Primarily, I'm a, you know, if we want to talk about like genre, right? So primarily a fiction reader. If you want to go to subgenre, you know, literary fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, I feel like is a bit of a blind spot for me. I think the last romance book I read was Song of Achilles. Loved that. Romantasy is the hot girl in town. Sarah J. Maas's Court of Thorns and Roses has been on the Amazon charts for, I feel like, a decade now. Fourth Wing has been like the latest it girl too. Maybe one of these days I'll read those books. Maybe I'll make a video about them. But really, like, I'll read anything. And I mean, you want to talk about a wide net I cast? I mean, I have Clockwork Orange right here, Crime and Punishment over here. The newest book I read was Yellow Face. I'm listening to Andy Serkis read The Lord of the Rings. I have The Wager on like that. I love a good story. I'm a slut for a good story. But yeah, those are the 10 questions on the Booktube Newbie tag. And that's all I've got for this intro video. Thank you for watching. It's really humbling for me that you stuck around this long. Still cooking up some things, do some books. But, you know, stick around. Please subscribe. Maybe you'll see something that you like. Thank you again, and I will see you when I see you. Bye. So, since you broke it in here and you don't really seem like you're in a position to leave, I guess we should talk about, you know, rent, utilities. This is a loft, so I guess you can sleep on the floor. Hey, wait, where are you going?